I had a lady reach out to me on Instagram last Tuesday. She was frantically wanting someone to speak to because her daughter, Kirsty, who was the same sort of age I was, she's 24 now. So she suffers all the same complications as me. And I think her mom was just in sheer desperation and wanting, some advice. And so I gave her my WhatsApp number. I had a conversation with her on Monday just gone, and it's crazy seeing her daughter actually, because she literally has every single complication that I had like 2 years ago. We were talking about our eyes. We've both got nystagmus, and there's currently nothing for nystagmus to treat it. Every surgeon I've spoken to has said it is permanent, and when you acquire it later on in life, you also get what's called ososcalypsia, which is basically the sensation that the world around you is moving. So I walk down the street and the trees and the people, like everything around me is moving in front, which makes it, when you had like a cerebral stroke and you suffer with balance issues anyway from a cerebellum like tumor or anything, it makes the balance like harder to comprehend and harder to deal with. And I just said to her, look, the reason I live with it now is in I can cope with it almost. I was in a state of sheer overwhelm with it 2 years ago with that sensation, but the reason I'm not that in that case anymore is not because it's changed. It's no different than it was. However, I just fully hopeful and trusting of the fact that in 5 or 10 years there will be more studies that come out all the time, and in 10 years time I'm still only going to be 37, and so even if it's 20 years time, it's still a good age if I live that long to then have a cure then.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamus, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Recovery After Stroke podcast. Recently, Spotify released a new feature which allows you to now rate your favorite shows in a similar way to how Apple Podcast app allows it. If you think the show deserves a 5-star review, I'd love it if you went across and left the show a 5-star review right now, and then come back and listen to this episode. The reason for this is because it will help the show rank better on search engines, and stroke survivors who are looking for information and stories about stroke recovery will be able to find the show easier and better, and therefore it'll make a massive difference in their recovery. So go to your favorite podcast app and share what the podcast means to you. It really will make a huge difference. Now, this is episode 186, and my guest today is Sammy Taylor, who experienced a cerebellar stroke that has impacted her eyes, leaving her with nystagmus, which according to the American Optometric Association is a vision condition in which the eyes make repetitive, uncontrolled movements. These movements often result in reduced vision and depth perception and can affect balance and coordination. These involuntary eye movements can occur from side to side, up and down, or in a circular pattern. Sammy Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
So in 2019, I had brain surgery. So I had a craniotomy remover, polycystic astrocytoma, and during the surgery, part of my brain didn't get any blood supply, and so I woke up with a stroke the next day, which was classified as a cerebellar stroke. And it just affected, I guess, everything in the cerebellum area, which is where the tumor was anyway. So it's very hard to say whether, because I was struggling with coordination and balance issues and that, it was kind of hard to say in the following months recovering whether things were getting better or things were the way they were because, the position of the tumor and so on.
When we hear about brain tumors, people usually don't have enough information to make a qualified response at the time when they're given the news that there's a brain tumor in there and we have to go in. What's it like to be in a doctor's surgery to go through all the tests and then get a result like that, especially when you're so young?
It's really funny actually, because I was first diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was 18 years old. So I didn't have the surgery until 5 years later. And it's funny because I'm writing a book now and I'm trying to do some of the emotional work, because I realized that when I read it for the third time, it was kind of, I just dumped almost the events as I could recall them. But it's because it happened so long ago that now when I get asked, oh, so what was it like, or when did you find out you had a tumor, then I have to kind of remember that actually I lived with it for like 5-6 years, and I almost forgot that I had it because I was so naive and young at the time. And it's only now that I'm having to I'm working with a therapist each week in order to kind of add some depth to that book. And she's really good in terms of, I mean, it's quite exhausting. I had a session this morning where she puts me in like a meditative state and takes me right back to that room so I can feel like every emotion. And on Monday we went right back to the beginning where I was like 18. I was in the doctor's office and I was like, wow, I had no idea that I even had this kind of reaction to it that I'd suppressed for so long. But I guess when I was so young, I remember just thinking, I didn't tell anyone at the time. So I went with my he's my ex-boyfriend now, but the two of us just strolled into the doctor's office. I was having headaches, and my doctor at the time sent me for an MRI just to rule anything out. And so we walked into that surgery room, just thinking it was going to be, a routine kind of, you're fine, you can go home, that's it. So when they told us, we just weren't expecting it at all. And I remember just being in such shock and disbelief. And I don't really remember too much changing when I look back. And I was trying to say that to the therapist this week, but I was in shock and disbelief that it was almost a little bit of denial, I guess, because I carried on so normally, like as you can imagine. But then actually, when I was looking back on those 5 years between when I was first diagnosed to then when I had the surgery, I did so many drastic things in that time. Like I moved to a new city, I had a career change, I left my boyfriend of 6 years, I traveled alone, and it was like I'd done nothing for 18 years. And so actually maybe subconsciously I was just almost living as if I never expected anything, bad would come of it. But I guess in a way that I was living just in case I was going to find out one day that, the opposite can be true.
The one thing that is certain is death. Every single day we're closer to it. Doesn't matter how old or young you are. And the reality is that I asked the question on Instagram just yesterday. I asked the guys, like, what has stroke taught you? And some of the responses were, stroke has taught me to live, or to not take things for granted, or you never know when your time is up, or how quickly life can change. And it's given people this sense of gratitude. It's given these people this sense of, I only get one shot at this, may as well make the most of it. To live actively every day. They're talking about living actively every day in life, not just sort of getting by. And not just sort of getting by, for me, really resonated. That's kind of like you're going through the motions. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you punch a card, for example, you come home, you pick up something to eat, you make something to eat, you sit down, you watch Netflix or just trashy TV shows or whatever. And I sort of see myself when I do that dumber than I was the day before, because I haven't evolved or grown or developed anything new that I can take to the world and benefit from, like me benefit from and the world benefit from. And I'm kind of I'm 48 this year, so you think about the shortness of life more often. And my parents are in their late 70s, and they talk about, we talk about, let's make a date, for example, to go somewhere to do something. And the first thing they start with is, God willing. It's like, if I'm alive and all these things. And it's like, wow, okay. So at some point you become really aware that life is going to end. For me, it was when the stroke happened. It became really obvious to me that it might not be another day after this, or 2 or 3 or whatever. So I needed to make a few things good. It took me 3 years to get to brain surgery, so there was quite a delay for me as well. And I was really good about it. When I got to brain surgery, I was really good. I had done all that work about, telling people I loved them and sorry and behaving more appropriately and apologizing more often and all that type of thing. That were the main concerns that I had. You had about, did you say 5 years before you got to brain surgery?
Yeah, I did, but no one knew. So it was just my ex-boyfriend at the time, and I wasn't with him by the time I found out that I needed brain surgery. So then it was just my mom that was the only other person that knew, and my older sister. And so then I just decided not to tell anyone that I needed surgery, because it was almost like I couldn't bear the questions of, well, like, they would be so shocked as I was, that almost then I would have to almost explain that I'd been living with it for 6 years before and not mentioned anything. So I was torn between that, and then I thought, okay, well, I've come this far. That, literally in my head then I was thinking, well, unknowingly, but I've come this far, I may as well go go the rest without telling anyone.
Okay.
So I just didn't, and I just decided that I was so confident that it was going to be fine. I mean, I met with 4 surgeons before I had the surgery. I ended up getting to kind of semi-choose who I went with, which also weighed heavily on my mind when things went sour when I woke up, because I was thinking, oh, this could be because I made this decision and whatnot. But I essentially, I was so confident that it was going to be fine, and all these surgeons had confirmed that, that I just decided then, I won't tell anyone. I'll just, I won't tell my family. I won't worry my friends or anyone. I won't kind of have that negative energy on this journey with me, and I'll just show everyone afterwards when it's fine. Well, then of course afterwards I looked fundamentally different. I couldn't walk. I couldn't feed myself or write for the longest time, and so then it was like a major shock, because then no one knew, and it had the complete opposite reaction of what I wanted it to do. It wasn't settling at all. It was, oh my God, overnight, like this, you've changed.
Yeah. Is there trauma associated to that? It sounds like you did a really good job to avoid dealing with any emotional challenges at the beginning. Then you got through, you traveled, you did all those things. I think it's really great that you did that, regardless of whether or not you had a brain tumor. But I think it's just great that you did those things. It's one thing that I didn't get to do when I was younger, and I regret not doing, is going out and about and being with my friends and meeting new people overseas and all that kind of stuff. But was there any trauma associated to that you discovered when you went back in this hypnotic state with the therapist?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, so in my book, there's so many themes that I want to cover, and so each session I have with it, we just have time to cover one, and my book has lists all the major themes. So I pick one, that I want to discuss, and today was right after I had the stroke, and it was taken back in that operating room when I woke up, because even then I remember waking up after the surgery, and I couldn't see at all. I've got nystagmus in my eyes, both sides. And so at the time though, before it had settled down just a little bit, now I have a very small central window of gaze, that when I first had the stroke, it was all over my eyes. I couldn't see at all or focus on anything. So then I remember saying to the nurse, oh my God, I can't see. I was just in such a state of panic. I was like, I can't see. But as I was saying that to her, I realized that my mouth I couldn't speak either. And so I knew that my mouth was wrong, something had happened. And I remember her stroking my hair going, no, Samantha, don't worry. It's just the anesthetic. It'll wear off soon. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I can't see at all. And so times like that where I go back in the room, and I think, again, it comes with denial and almost maybe not telling anyone leading up, because also I was studying really hard at the time in a financial role. I was trying to get accredited in a SEMA qualification, and I was getting a promotion at work, and so then it all switched overnight in this office, and I thought, well, I need to keep it a secret, because I don't want people to think I'm not capable at work. And I was just going through all these things in my mind thinking, my friends won't see me the same. They're not going to think I've just moved to London. So I was developing a new social circle. And so I was surrounded by people that weren't family or like close friends that I'd known for years. And so I thought, well, do I want to like establish this friendship ground now on the basis of like feeling like they would pity me because I'm now this like ill person? So I just had like loads of mixed emotions. And so obviously like now when I go back in those rooms, it's all these like things that I didn't even know that I was feeling until they come out now. And I'm like, well, it's too late now. Like it doesn't really affect my life. My life is so different now, for example. So when I'm writing stuff, it feels a little bit easier to maybe add some of that emotional side because it does feel like a very different person. And I actually finished writing the book last year, but I think I needed the break that I had to almost go back now and add the emotional side, being that I'm not so close to it. Like it's not my life now.
Awesome. So there's a separation from the trauma. You think now
Yeah.
you're not going about it and remembering it and getting re-traumatized. You're just recalling what happened in the past, and you're able to develop the story further and make it deeper so that there's an emotional aspect of it because you feel like there was an emotional aspect that was missing because you
Yeah.
had kind of like just shut it out because you had to get through all these stages. And I don't know what the right or wrong thing is, but as you're describing it to me, it feels like you've done the right thing because you've got to this stage and look at you now and you're reflecting on it and everything's kind of worked out and you managed to get all those things done that you wanted to get done while you were getting to brain surgery. And it kind of has worked out, hasn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah. Like I look back now and I think, well, it's like it went really well. Like as in like keeping it a secret and kind of shitting out this emotional trauma like worked well for me. But then I've never really been one of these people that I guess like when I have a headache or a cold, I don't tell my mom or my sister or my family because they're worriers. So in the nicest way possible. But then it might be, you know, every day for like 2 weeks. How are you feeling today? Or how are you feeling
Yeah,
today?
I hear
And
you.
I don't feel like I don't feel that anymore. So I'm fine. But then I thought, well, that's a common cold. So God, what are they going to be like when, you know, I've got this huge like mass in my brain? And so the days then, the reason I kept it a secret was because, you know, I guess there were sometimes, quite a lot of times actually, where I'd be so overwhelmed with like work, and if I was having a really good day, I'd be then crying because I'd be like, oh my God, I have to take a break from this soon. And then equally, if I was having a really bad day, I was overwhelmed thinking like I wasn't feeling like capable. But at the same time, like I'd go home and then like cry in my room or like journal and things. But the next day I could put on a brave face and carry on as normal. Whereas if too many people knew, it was like almost, I imagine that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have moments of where I'd be able to forget about it because there would always be someone messaging me or asking how I feel in the nicest, you know, with the right intentions, obviously.
I know
But
it.
then
I know.
you can never shut off if that's the case. And so I thought, you know, I'm just going to do it on my own.
I love it. I get. I'm 10 years in. This week was kind of my 10-year anniversary of the first bleed, and I
Oh,
have
amazing.
relationships with people who are still, who I see once a year, kind of people. You know, they're really lovely people, but we just only see them once or twice a year, and we're still on the "how are you" kind of part of the relationship. Like, how are you? Like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. But they're not asking me like the general "how are you" small talk kind of thing. They're talking about the stroke still. You know, they're talking about how are you going, how are you doing, how have you been, you know. And it's like, I don't know, man, it's like 10 years and 6 years since surgery. Everything is normal. Whatever I've been left with and whatever I'm dealing with, it's all normal part of my life now. It's all just normal. So like, I can't move them from that "how are you" kind of situation. And I know what you mean. And warriors, having warriors around me, worrying people, that really makes it difficult for me as well. I can't cope with having people around who just want to know what the hell's wrong all the time. Like, what's wrong? and they're asking you what's wrong, it's not actually about you, it's about them. It's to either ease their anxiety. They're asking you, hoping to ease their anxiety. So if you say everything's fantastic, they don't give a shit if that's the truth or not. They just want to hear everything's fantastic so they don't have to worry about you, because they're just habitual worriers. So I know exactly what you mean. And I know parents and family can be the worst, because, you know, they care about us more than most people, I suppose, or they can care about us the most. So if they've got bad habits around how they care, then it's really difficult on the other person. And that's part of the stroke recovery. It's like really important to make the circle of people that you interact with the most best version of the people that you can possibly get. Not that we don't love the ones that are over worrying, but to limit the interactions with them and to try and steer the interactions into a different direction, so that it's not always about experiencing their anxiety from the question that looks like they care, because it's actually trying to relieve their anxiety. That's my experience. Does that resonate with you?
100%. No, definitely everything you said. I mean, I've got people in my family who are ring now, and they say, "How's your health?" Like, what do you mean, how's my health? How's your health? I don't ask you how your health is. It's like, you know, it's fine now. It's good. But it's that classic where they just forever. That's what I worried about actually. The reason I didn't want to tell people was because I didn't want them to now see me as, you know, a sick person, whatever. But it turns out that even if you recover, you're always going to be same way you probably always, you parents, like baby, you're always going to be someone now that had a stroke, or, you know,
The
it's just what it
sick
is, what it
person.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, quote unquote, the sick person. And just because somebody appears, and this is the real difficulty with invisible symptoms of stroke and all that kind of stuff. Just because you appear normal, like me, doesn't mean I'm well. But also, just because you quote unquote don't appear normal doesn't mean you're sick.
Yeah.
And it's all these assumptions that people make, and nobody stops to have a real conversation with you at all, because it's too much for them. They can't cope with it. I don't know what it is. And they just don't lend an ear the way they need to. They don't listen to your responses that's about you. They listen to the response that's about them. And we're getting nowhere in this conversation again. And it's like, oh, wow, isn't the weather great today? And it's better to just change the subject.
No, so true. I really resonated as well when you said, you know, that a lot of the times people ask you how they're feeling, they don't really care about the answer. They want to alleviate their own anxieties. And I notice that so much, you know, with my family, they feel like maybe they need to worry, and so they just almost check in, and then as soon as I think I'm like fine, or I say I'm fine, then it's okay. And it's like, then they go off and live their like normal days and stuff, and it's like, okay, well, what happened to like the general chit chat as well? Sometimes like I remember like going through it. I mean, oh, you probably know this as well, but straight after my kind of stroke and my surgery, my friendship groups changed massively as well, because you really do notice who's like there around you and not. And even though everything is completely fine now, well, it's not completely fine, but I mean, things are on the up now, and it's like my life is like back to normal. I do get people from like, you know, old like school and things like message me now on Instagram, and I'm like, well, hang on a minute, you didn't message me like 2 years when I actually really needed people. And so like now I'm very, very cutthroat with that. And I just think that anyone that was not necessarily supportive or around during that time, I can't imagine that I'd ever need them for anything in future. And I know that might sound like negative to some people, but for me, it's just very much a case of, well, I can't imagine that I'm ever going to go through anything quite as big as what I went through. So to go through that like on my own pretty much, and with the small group of people that I had around me, it's enough now. I'm really content with that, and it makes me realize that maybe I just don't need other like additional people. And I think it's actually a good thing to maybe find that out when you're young. So I don't see that as a negative that I found that out, you know, when I was like 25. I think that's really positive actually.
Yeah, about 4 years ago, I ran into somebody who I hadn't seen during my illness. So maybe I hadn't seen them for 6 years actually, or 7 years before I was unwell, but they were in touch with people that I was in touch with. So we never crossed paths at mutual gatherings or events, but we knew people, the same people. And I was at a pub, and this was about 4 years ago. I was at a pub, and I see this guy, and he bumps into me, and he starts the conversation. How you going? The usual stuff, there's a bit of conversation there. And then he goes, sorry, I didn't come and see you when you were in the hospital. It's like, I haven't seen you for 6 years at least. And it's all right. Like, it doesn't matter that you didn't come in the hospital. And based on the person that I know you are, it's probably better that you didn't come to the hospital. I didn't say that to him, but I was thinking it's probably better that you didn't come to the hospital, because I wouldn't be able to deal with somebody like you in the hospital, because he always used to make the conversation about himself anyway. So I was feeling like he would say something to me like, oh man, you got your head cut open and there's blood gushing out or whatever, and you just had brain surgery, you can't walk anymore. And I was feeling like he would go and throw in but you remember when my wife left me, right? And I was dreading people like that coming into the room, because for once in my life, no, it was actually about me. I was in hospital. I was really unwell. And I'm not going to let it be about you. If we're going to talk about small talk, that's fine. But if you want to talk about me, now's your time to step up and actually have an emotional conversation with your friend who's in the bed opposite you, is unwell and needs an emotional conversation, needs to talk about something serious, not about you and not about irrelevant stuff. Because there's never been a better time to be serious, because right now it's serious and I'm not feeling well, and I need somebody to guide my spirit and make it feel like everything is going to be okay on the other side of this, whatever that looks like. And you're not capable of doing that. You're not the guy who's capable of doing that. So it's okay that you're not here. Like, totally okay. So the first thing to come out of his mouth is, sorry, I didn't come to the hospital. Is, you've had 4 years since the hospital to come and see me out of the hospital as well. You still didn't come. So I kind of feel like they know instinctively inside somewhere that they are not useful to have around.
Yeah.
And they give us the best gift of not turning up. What they don't know is that they don't need to apologize for that. They shouldn't, they shouldn't feel guilty about it. They should just go, hey, listen, you were really unwell for a while. I heard about that. Well, I hope you're doing better. And that's it. Leave it at that. There's no need for an apology. I'm not expecting one.
Yeah, it's almost as if they assume maybe that you didn't have anyone around, or that their presence had made like a huge difference. But I just think now I just leave everything to kind of, I just think things kind of, I hate the saying things happen for a reason, because some really bad things do happen, but I don't believe in that now. I just believe that life is so unpredictable. We never know from one day to the next what's going to happen. And when you make peace with the fact that it can just change like unexpectedly, you just kind of, it doesn't matter who's around you at what certain day, as long as they're kind of adding to your life, I always think, in some way. So yeah, I mean, I guess what you're saying as well, me and my friends, my best friend Heather, she's been recently diagnosed with stage 4. Well, they said it's like, it's not terminal, but it's a throat cancer, and they class it as stage 1, 2, 3 normal cancers, and then when it's a throat cancer, it's for A, B, and C on the way that it grows and things. And so she had surgery a few weeks ago, and it spread again. She had another surgery, and then she just found out, even though they removed the whole tumor, she found out 2 days ago she's got to have another surgery, because it's already spread again. So they've got to remove every single lymph node. But for years we've had this, we've never really understood when some people can be so kind of in competition with like whose day is the worst and things. You have a headache and someone's like, well, I've got this and I've got that, and so we make joke of that now. So when I see her or she sees me and things, we're always like, yeah, but I had brain surgery. She's like, yeah, but I've got stage 4 cancer, and I'm like, yeah, but I had a stroke. we like fully make like a joke of it and just like play off like, you know, whose situation is worst.
I love
And
it.
it's really funny that we do that, to be honest.
It is really funny. I love it because the two of you understand that you're actually taking the piss of the people that do that. The guy with the with the splinter in his finger is the guy you're taking the piss out of, that comes to hospital and says, oh, you've had a stroke. Yeah, I've got a splinter in my finger. Wow. Like, wow, you must be suffering, immense trauma, emotional, physical, mental. Keep it to yourself and don't worry about the splinter. You'll be fine. What about, so how long has it been since your surgery now? How long has it been since all of that has been in the past?
Well, 2.5 years, that I'm still, I have a hospital appointment tomorrow, for example, at East Grinstead. They're an amazing hospital in the UK. They focus on like reconstructive, like reanimation, like facial surgery. So I actually had face surgery there in September 2020, but in October, I have to get my, October 2021, I'm always having these surgeries. Then I had platinum retained eye surgery. So tomorrow is like, and that's basically like a weight they put in the lid to obviously close the eye, make it blink. And so tomorrow I'm just having my checkup with my surgeon for that. But I've got like 4 different surgeons for 4 different things, so it's crazy. But again, because I guess the stroke happened 2.5 years ago. And so now when I say that, it seems really long, but I'm still in hospital all the time, or I'm still having corrective surgeries or this, that, and the other. And I never, when she took me back, for example, today, my therapist, in like this emotional state, I was like, wow, the reason I haven't processed any of these emotions is because it's been ongoing, one thing after the other. It's like, oh, great, you can now walk again. Yeah, we need to do your eye surgery. Because first of all, in March 2020, just before the first UK lockdown, I had Nystagmus eye surgery for double vision. So it's like, okay, great, you can walk, and now we need to fix your eyes, so stop you seeing 2 everything. And then when I recovered from that, it was like, okay, great, like now your face will never heal, so we need to do a nerve graft on that. So then when I recovered from that, it's like, okay, well now we're going to do another eye surgery, and so you can blink again. So it's been constant. I've never really had a break to even now, I haven't had necessarily like a break to just be like, okay, well, wow, that happened, that was weird. It's still happening, but
I love it. You're busy doing stuff and getting stuff done. I love it. I'm feeling really kind of pumped up and emotional about this in a good way. Like, is it fucking fantastic that there's so many surgeries that they can do to support people who have had a stroke? And 30 years ago, none of this stuff was available for anybody. Is that fucking brilliant or what?
Oh my God, it's insane. It's so good. And like last, the September when I had my face surgery, I was the first in the UK to have that particular surgery and 4th in the world. My surgeon was amazing, and I fully trusted him from the get-go, even though I recorded that session when I was in there, and I listened to it the other day, and both of us are like laughing, and we clearly know it's like the first time that we're going to be doing this, and he's trying to reassure me in like a laughing way, because I'm nervously laughing, I think, saying it's not pioneering, don't worry, like I've done this before, like as in like I've not done this particular surgery, he was saying, but I know how to do it. But then he was like, we'll do it on this date, because then I need to like go on this course and prepare for it. And I was like, wait, so you don't even know how to do it, and now you're going on the course? And he was like referring to it as, when the analogy he gave me was, when you embark on a long road trip, you wouldn't go without a map, you want to be prepared. And I was like, whoa, you're like my face surgery, so like this map and stuff, and it's crazy. But then I have like girls messaging me on Instagram still now, which is one of the main reasons I share everything that I do. And it's made for that reason. And I have girls though in, all kind of countries saying, oh my god, I'm at a loose end, like I'm desperate for something, like we don't have this in our country, please put me in touch with someone. And then when I suggest my search, and I'm like, well, actually they don't do, like, NHS don't do extent, like, overseas patients, but maybe contact them private. And it's just like makes me realize how fortunate I am, for example, to have the NHS here, because I haven't you wait a long time for stuff, but I don't have to pay or think about it. So, and it's like you are given, for example, they do suggest this pioneering surgery, they can do it for you, and it's not a case of it's just a no brainer, no pun intended, but it's like to them they don't even see it as, yeah, okay, you can't believe what's immediately to the platinum chain surgery, it's the best one at the moment. They don't even, you don't have to ask almost for these massive breakthroughs, they just want to do it for you, and it makes your life so much better.
The NHS in the UK is the National Health Service.
Yes.
In Australia, we've got we've got Medicare. It's the same kind of service. And through our taxes, our weekly, daily work taxes, and the goods and services tax, which is a 10% tax on every purchase that you make, there's a fund that goes towards our hospital system, where if you don't have health cover, if you don't have insurance, you're fully covered. So I'm grateful for that as well, because I went to Greece and had a conversation with some people about 2 years after my brain surgery, 3 years after my brain surgery. And when I got there, people were saying to me, man, my cousin, for example, fell over, broke her leg. And at that time, she had to get it looked at and repaired. And because she couldn't walk, and I was at the hospital with her, I would be told, you guys need to go to that particular window, get the invoice, then go to the next window and pay the bill, and then bring the receipt to us so we can do the scan of the leg to see if it's broken or not. And I'm losing my mind. I'm going, what the hell? Like, just scan the lady's leg and then let's pay for the freaking bill, whatever it is, make sure that you get this person help. So she has to wait to go through the windows with a broken leg in a queue. And then once she's done that, then she can get her scan. And I couldn't believe it. I was pushing her through these windows. So in Australia, you go to the hospital, they scan your leg, and that's the last time you hear from anybody. If it's broken, they sort it out. If it's not, you go home. They tell you how to fix it and look after it and go home. And then when we're talking about my brain surgery, and the guys were going, oh, that must have cost a bundle or all that kind of, and I'm like, oh no, it didn't cost me anything. What do you mean it didn't cost you anything? And I was like, well, that's one of the reasons why in Australia we pay tax. In Greece, they try to avoid tax under any circumstance. And the system there was faltering. And one of the main issues they had all those financial problems back in 2010 was because they never collected tax, and all they did was spend. And I said to the guy, well, it cost me $0 to go to hospital, have all the appointments, all the tests, all the things that I'd done, and then go to brain surgery, and then get all the rehab for a month, and then get all the aftercare for 3, 4, 5 years. It cost me completely $0. And they were just looking at me like I was talking some other language. They were stunned. So for me, I take it for granted and it's normal. And then I hear about people in the United States complain about Medicare, the Obamacare and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know the politics of it, but Obama was trying to implement something similar, that if that service was available in the United States, that would be like becoming a socialist republic of some kind and converting the United States of America into something worse than what it already was. Like caring for people was going to become worse. And I can't compute the issues that they have in America with getting a bill like that over the line, like a law like that over the line, where every human participates in their own health and well-being by putting a small amount of tax towards it. And it's like 1 or 2% for us. Like, it's not massive.
Mm.
And then in the United States, they don't see that as a positive thing to do for A, yourself, and B, for your fellow human beings and your fellow country people. It's just bizarro world. So, and then all the surgeries that are available to us are leading edge, cutting edge. Even though there is this free supposed system, or this system that we pay for through our taxes, that has helped the doctors come to Australia, become established, learn the greatest amount of things that they need to learn. And that's why we have some of the best hospitals in the world in our 5 cities, in our 5-6 cities, that are world class, and that you can get amazing surgeries in, and all this type of stuff that have never been done before, and are getting tested and proven here, and are changing the way that people are getting helped and supported. So when I hear about people from overseas, it really breaks my heart. It's really difficult to hear about people that can't access services just because they live in the wrong part of the world. But then I think about things like GoFundMe, which has changed the game for a lot of people who have been able to raise money to put towards such a amazing cause, like getting a surgery or getting some additional support for a loved one or for themselves. And even though it's been really hard for people overseas, and it still is for a lot of people, it's much better than what it was still. Like, still things are improving because of these amazing services like GoFundMe and all the hundreds of other ones that are out there. So I suppose things are getting better, but there's a long way to go. Things are getting better for the stroke community, because there's communities like this that exist, and Instagram is full of people who are talking about their stroke and sharing the stories. Every second stroke survivor I was spoken to is writing a book. And that wasn't the case 10 years ago when I started on this journey. I'm writing a book. I'm probably halfway through. It's been the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, because I was never academic or, literate in that way, in kind of telling stories in a way that other people would consume them. So things are way different than they were 10 or 12 years ago. And I can't imagine how good or better and how improved they're going to be in another 10 or 12 years. Tell me about the idea behind your book. Why did you decide to write the book, and how far off is it from being finished and ready to print?
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
I think it just goes back to what you just said. I mean, I had a lady reach out to me on Instagram last Tuesday. It was through my Beauty Brain UK account, and she was frantically, wanting someone to speak to, because her daughter Kirsty, who was the same sort of age I was, she's 24 now, so she's around the same sort of age I was when I first had brain surgery. And she suffers all the same complications as me, and I think her mom was just in sheer desperation and wanting some advice. And so I gave her my WhatsApp number. I had a conversation with her on Monday just gone, and it's crazy seeing her daughter actually, because she literally has every single convocation that I had like 2 years ago. So I know it's very like almost not comforting to them to know like it does get better. When I was almost saying that, I know everyone's journey is completely different as well. And I don't know necessarily like, the ins and outs of her surgery. But for example, we were talking about our eyes. We've both got nystagmus, and there's currently nothing for nystagmus to treat it. Every surgeon I've spoken to has said it is permanent, and when you acquire it later on in life, you also get what's called ososcalypsia, which is basically the sensation that the world around you is moving. So I walk down the street and the trees and the people, like everything around me is moving in front, which makes it, when you've got when you had like a cerebral stroke and you suffer with balance issues anyway from a cerebellum like tumor or anything, it makes the balance like harder to comprehend and harder to deal with. And I just said to her, look, the reason I live with it now is in I can cope with it almost. I was in a state of sheer overwhelm with it 2 years ago with that sensation, but the reason I'm not that in that case anymore is not because it's changed. It's no different than it was. However, I just fully hopeful and trusting of the fact that in 5 or 10 years there will be more studies that come out all the time, and in 10 years time I'm still only going to be 37, and so even if it's 20 years time, it's still a good age if I live that long to then have a cure then. And so I think basically the main reason for that book, and the reason I'm writing a book for it, is the relatability of it. So I mean it's not even that long ago, 2 years ago, but when I first had got the news that I was having brain surgery, and I went on Instagram, I couldn't find anyone really of my like age or similarities who was going through it. And then when I had a stroke, it was even worse, because I was like hashtagging stroke recovery, and it's a lot more as in like there's a lot more of an Instagram community now, and people who are like coming forward and sharing their stories, but there wasn't even that 2 years ago. And so I really felt alone with it. And the comparisons were just hostile sites on Instagram that were sharing stroke survivors, but not to stereotype, but they were just so unrelatable to me, and much older, for example, or a different kind of stroke. And I think I've gone through pretty much, not like to my like surgery horn, but I've gone through everything really that you could go through at kind of my age in terms of having brain surgery or a stroke. So then to have like the first face surgery in the UK, and it also comes down to there was online dating in the mix, where you go from being, I mean, when I was like 24, I was in the height of my career, I was in like the prime, and I had loads of I wasn't sure of like dating in the city, and it was like classic when you're 24 and like single and like having fun and like feel like loads of male attention things. And then almost overnight that changed. So it's not even just a book that kind of shares my brain tumor journey, it's everything, like my relationships and friendship groups that changed at the time. I have a strange relationship with my dad, who, when he found out about the news of my brain surgery, didn't want anything to do with me almost. My sister really suffered with mental health issues, and whilst this was all going on, and there was illnesses and other illnesses in family that were to contend with. And so there's all these different themes. And then obviously 2 of my surgeries, well 3 of them now actually, were in the pandemic, so when COVID-19 hit. And so there's just so many themes in the book that I really realized could even just, I guess, going through any kind of challenge. And I set up a business about that, and I really kind of like use my mindset and like focus on like positivity, and really kind of I knew that I couldn't heal my body, that I could like heal my brain. And so I just kind of like heal my mind in a way. So I guess there's like those aspects. Some people do come to me like I've got some friends who come to me and they want to know about how to start business, and it's so different, like it could be anything. So it's not necessarily just the stroke survivors. But I think that's why I wanted to write it, because there was a lot of substance that I realized was relatability was the key, and it's what I wanted 2 years ago to go on Instagram, and it's why now girls and their parents and message me now, and they want to know all these different, different kind of questions they have, and they want answers to it, desperately seeking answers, like I was.
Yeah, I love what you do, because you're showing the before there was a lot of shit, after there's a lot of stuff going on, normal stuff that people go through normally.
But there's still some shit, right?
Yeah.
So so then it was all on the up for me.
Yeah.
And then that's when my best friend got diagnosed with cancer. And so
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I said to my sister, and I had this mantra, something good is about to happen. And I was like, do you know what? Something good did happen, just shit just followed it again. So it's that
Cycle.
constant, it's wave, it's okay. And when you make peace with that, you have no fear really and anxiety about life.
It's normal life. That's all it is. It's not always pleasant. My mother-in-law died 2 weeks before my brain surgery.
Oh no.
We had to go into brain surgery with my wife mourning her mum. I wasn't allowed to be a pallbearer because I wasn't allowed to hold anything heavy or strain myself or get too upset or emotional, because the bleed was still bleeding 3 years after the first time. And then I had to go into brain surgery, and my wife had to, well, imagine that I was going to survive, and that was only going to be the only outcome. But of course, her mum's death, fresh on her mind and still in trauma, she's doing the whole, maybe he's not going to make it. Maybe I won't see him again. Maybe, who knows? So that's what do you do? Like, that's what life does. It's just does its thing, and we've just got to do our thing and continue through it. And I've met some guys and I've coached some people around stroke recovery, and they've said to me, like, what have I done that's been so bad that I deserve all of this? It's like, get your head out of your ass. You haven't done anything. All you've done is woken up and been alive, and you're living a life, and everybody else is doing the exact same thing. You're not immune to the rest of life just because you're going through something bad health-wise. You're actually fully involved in life. That is what you're doing. It makes it's like a weird way to flip it, but you're actually fully involved in life when you're unwell and trying to survive and stay alive. That's exactly what we're meant to be doing. That's the most amazing part of life, is we don't appreciate it until we have to fight to keep it. And everyone goes through that. You've got like 10 books in you. Like, you're such a veteran at your age, at 27. You have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, a wealth of maturity. You have a really good sense of how to mentally approach things. You've been able to go back and understand what your emotional state was like, so you can relate to people from an emotional level. And you're a female who has had your face impacted. Therefore, you kind of understand that girly, long hair, facial feature type of issues that people go through, and they can't imagine being any different to what they were when they were born, or how they woke up for the last 20 or 30 years. And I interviewed a lady just a couple of episodes ago who's going to be an interview that goes live just before you. So for people who listen to the series, maybe it's 1 or 2 before this interview. And she talks about how after her stroke, she wasn't sure whether she'd be able to have a relationship again, and how would somebody be able to love me, and what's that going to be like in the future. And of course, that was just a crappy story she was telling herself, and it was coming from fear and the rest of it. And she overcame that as well. She's lovable. Doesn't matter about whether she has a eye problem or a smile problem or whatever. Like, she's a perfectly lovable human being, and she found love, and she's in a relationship now. So I think that's what's beautiful about what you're doing. And what a lot of stroke survivors do is they start with, I'm going to make it about me, and then they do the recovery. And somewhere, even though they're still on the about me part of the recovery, they think about other people. And it's like, let me help other people while I'm going through this. Maybe it'll make that part is, that's what I did. And I kind of found myself in that state and went, how did I make it about other people? Like, what's that about? You're nicer than I thought, Bill. Like, what's all this stuff about? And do you know what I mean? Like, there's that weird thing that we must make an effort to support other people. I just don't get it. I understand it because I'm doing it and I love doing it, but I don't kind of like, I just can't compute how we turn it into something about other people and that makes us better and our recovery improves because of that. And then we start to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I don't know, we become a voice for this whole, for our fellow survivors, I suppose. Like, do you find it weird that you're in this helping space where you think about when you were 18, like as if you were ever going to be somebody who helps other people about overcoming something so serious as a stroke? Like, isn't that weird?
It's absolutely like crazy to think. I just can't even, I still can't get my head around it. But it wasn't, I don't know about you, but for me it wasn't even a conscious decision that this is what I was going to do. Like, I realize now, so when I'm like writing this book, I'm on this particular chapter of how I first set up my business, and then it was a case of I couldn't sleep. I was like suffering insomnia for like nights, months on end. I didn't tell anyone really, so I had no one to confide in. And so setting up Beauty in the Brain, like my business, became such a welcome distraction, because when I couldn't sleep, then I've known as well, you're supposed to take yourself out of your room so you don't start associating your room as a place you can't sleep. And so I was going downstairs in the kitchen, but I wasn't, stimulated by the TV or anything like that. And so I took, I journal every single day, and I started like just writing pages and pages. And then that's when I thought, actually I might just set up a blog and just share, like, quite like writing. I'll do that. And then when I had the stroke and I was recovering from that, and I then was doing bracelets, and that's how kind of Beauty in the Brain started. And it was very much, I was handwriting the labels, I was walking to the post office. It was all such, I didn't want to do it at first because I couldn't physically do it, but then I pushed through it, and I was like, no, do you know what? And my writing improved because I was writing labels every day.
Wow.
My walking improved because I was forcing myself to go to the post office. And there's all these different things. And I guess, as well as the fact, I was off work and I was off like long-term sick for quite a long time, and so I could have maybe just watched Netflix and watched all these TV series and looked back on the year, but I, deep down I worried that my brain wasn't going to be like stimulated by that, or it was going to, I was going to like almost lose brain cells by like not doing anything creative or
Yes.
thought-provoking. So it really helped. Writing as well also really helped my cognitive ability, and it just hindered, like, it just helped in so many things, and helped so many, all the things that I was hindered by, recovering. So yeah.
It's neuroplasticity in action, and it's for a good cause. So it's positive neuroplasticity, and it's rewiring your brain ability to think, to write, to express yourself. It's rewiring your hand to write. It's rewiring your legs to walk. You're going and interacting with people in public. You're starting to do all those things that you quote unquote normally do, and therefore life has this common theme of normality, and you're involved in it and you're taking an active part, and you don't realize it at the beginning, but now you can reflect on it and go, wow, that was such a amazing thing that I did, was to go out and participate in this thing in this way, because I got the added benefits of doing stuff that I wasn't planning to get benefits from, like improve my writing. What a stroke of genius that was, to go down that path and write handwritten labels for people that had bought stuff. And your writing, you were using that to raise money for, was it the brain tumor research?
No, it's Brains Trust. So when I was first diagnosed, no, not when I was first diagnosed, because I forget that I was diagnosed when I was, 18. So I call like 2019 when I was first like diagnosed. But when I first found out about the surgery, I had two very conflicting views from different like surgeons who said the complete opposite. And so the reason I got in contact with Brain Stress was because I just desperately needed their advice on what to do. And they were the ones that put me in contact with a third private brain surgeon and paid for the consultation and everything. So I did a sponsored walk for them, wanted to raise money, but there was always that part of me that was just so grateful, even now, at just what they did, because it wasn't even the monetary aspect. It was so like small in comparison to the way that it made me feel and the impact that it had. And I just felt like I could never repay that, and so I'll never feel like I'm done to like repaying that. And so it was very much that the reason I wanted to do these bracelets was to continue donating to them somehow for the rest of my life, but also I knew I was going to be off and long-term sick for quite a long time potentially, and so I needed a way of supplementing my income. And so that's kind of like what I did. And again, it was, I said this to the girl the other day on the phone, whether or not it was the right thing to do. I moved back initially straight after my brain surgery, my stroke. I couldn't do anything for myself, so I moved back home with my mum to recover. And she did a lot for me, but we clashed personalities because I'm such an independent person that it was actually making me almost like, it was getting me in a worse mental state, because I was like, all that, everything that I can't do, I was being reminded of what I couldn't do on a consistent basis, so daily basis. So at 5 weeks, when I still couldn't really feed myself or walk down the street unaided, or walk that far, walk up the stairs carrying something, for example, I decided to move back into my house share in London. So I lived with like 4 people between the ages of like 25 and 32 at the time. And there's me, overnight. They didn't really care that overnight I'd walked into this house share then that was like this party house before I left. And all of a sudden now I can't walk up the stairs on my own. But no one believed me. When I did it, everyone was like fearful. My family and everything were like, you cannot do it. You can't cope or anything. But I'm saying to the physio, I was having daily physio at the time, and I just said, get me to the place where I can just walk down the street if I need to, even if I held something. And I had to obviously hold like a umbrella, like a stick at the time, and I couldn't do any of my shopping or anything, or washing or anything. But I had no choice. Like moving back to London in the house share meant that, yes, I did struggle for like quite a few weeks and months, that I had no choice but to do the things myself, because no one else was going to do them for me. And so in a way that massively helped my recovery. And I do think it's a bit cutthroat now. Like if that happened to any of my friends, I would 100% like be like, no, you can't do that on your own, like you need someone there. But actually that tough love, like I do think that my recovery was perhaps a bit quicker than it maybe would have been had I have stayed wrapped in cotton wool, never doing anything for myself at home in that recovery. So again, like I do think maybe, and again, being back in London, then I had nothing to do. My housemates were often like the office and partying and rooftop bars, and so I didn't even have my family then to look after me. So it was just me in my house day on. It was quite lonely. And so beating the brain, really, that's at the point where that took off, because I just put everything into it, because it became like my kind of safety net and my companion in a way. Like I know that sounds really sad, but when I sat in my room like not having anyone else, it was it was just there at the time. So
It's a
yeah,
masterstroke.
it almost wasn't intentional. That's just the way that it kind of transpired then, because I was on my own for so long. So
it's a masterstroke. I love the fact that you went back and lived in the UK, in London on your own. It's a masterstroke. I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but it is actually the best thing that you could have possibly done. That level of ability that you had was enough, obviously, to get you through and to get you better. And what does it? And it teaches so much about yourself. Like it teaches you so much about yourself. How resilient you are, how tough you are, how willing you are to succeed, how much you're going to fight to overcome. You're putting yourself first mentally as well, which is a real masterstroke, because there's nothing worse than relying on the one person that you want to rely on, which is your mum, for example, but she's not up to the task. And it's through no fault of her own. She just doesn't have the skills to support you because she doesn't know how to support somebody that is like you. And that's the thing about parents, is parents' responsibility is to adapt, to grow, to become better versions of themselves, to actually live with their kids who are different than them. But a lot of people don't realize that it's our job to grow and become better versions of ourselves, more evolved version of ourselves, so we can deal with these weirdo things that came out of your mum's belly, and it's like, how do I bring them into the world, and how do I relate to them even though they're so different? How do I not make them be like me? And then not being able to rely on that person, some people would have taken that really seriously the wrong way and negatively, and felt really let down and disappointed. But it sounds like you love your mum, but it's like, it's good for her to be over there. I can love her from a distance, and I can go back to being myself, and finding a way to overcome all these obstacles. Because let's face it, some obstacles, you actually need to do them on your own and work out yourself how to get around them, because that person that you went to, your mum, she's never gone through what you've gone through. How the hell is she supposed to know how to get through the other side? What can she share to support you to do that? Nothing. And that's the same as my parents. They had no idea. My brother didn't, my wife didn't, nobody does. They still don't. I never want them to know what it's like to go through stroke and overcome it. So I'll let them do their thing the way they need to do their thing, and I'll relate to, and I'll find my own unique ways to overcome my own challenges, because every stroke is unique. Even what you did and how I did my recovery, might not help each other, but at least we kind of get each other, and that's far different from our other family members.
I guess, like, just again, it comes back to just understanding emotion. So, like you said, our experiences are different, but we probably would have gone through some of the exact same emotions. And for me, for example, growing like overnight was almost like grieving my old self, but that didn't come out until a few years later. And so there was all these different emotions. And so when I was having outbursts like that, it's very easy. My mom won't mind me saying this, because we've always we're so independent, and so she's raised us amazing on her own to be independent though, which means we do clash heads, because I'm so strong-willed as she is, and I have like 3 other sisters, and so there was a house of 5 women, and we were all strong-willed, which was an absolute nightmare growing up. And so I was always butting heads with my mom, because then when I was coming down there, I remember in the early days of recovering at a house, and she was having to, for example, like wash me in the shower or tie my hair up when I couldn't do it, and all these different things, and then like cut my food for me like I was like a child again. And so it was demoralizing for me. But it was when I would come downstairs frustrated, she would tell my physio, oh, she's depressed today, or she's negative today. And I would be like, well, Mom, I'm just having like one little outburst, and I'm sorry, but yes, like I fucking am depressed. Like, let me for this one day just have my little outburst, because it's not even a whole day. But if I come down the stairs frustrated because you've had to do my hair and I'm 26 years old, then, and you've done it horrible because I hated it, it was like in a tight flat or something, like as if I've gone to school the day that she used to do, it just was wrong. And so I was like, yeah, I am frustrated this day, but it doesn't mean that I'm a negative person, or I'm symbolic of someone who's like pessimistic. I'm positive 95% of the time, but I'm only human. I'm not like a robot. I do have feelings as well. So although I'm this amazing, this brave, this inspirational person, so I'm not those things sometimes. Like I just sit in my room like crying sometimes, thinking, oh my God, like what has happened? But you live and you learn, and it's part of life. And I think it's so normal to be like, have these emotions. But that's what she couldn't handle. I was supposed to be like, we've been taught to be strong all the time, and when we were younger, and sometimes it was something like this happens and it's massive like challenge, you just have like mood swings, for example, or mood changes, or especially something like overnight that's like a fundamental change. And so it's not that that person is now like broken forever, that you have to almost allow them to just express it in their way. And yeah, that's when we batted head massively. So I just thought, I'm just gonna take myself off to London. I just doesn't even matter if I don't eat for a week there. I can't do it. At least I can cry. At least I can cry in peace. So that's kind of what I did.
Yeah. And mum doesn't have to worry about seeing you cry and knowing how to respond and trying to stop you from crying and all that kind of stuff. She just has to get over the fact that you're not near her. And that's probably better for her at the time. I feel like that would have been, because distance does make it a little better, I think, especially when somebody is going through a tough time, like not being in their face or all over them the whole time. I think it really is important, giving people space to be themselves, and in stroke be their ugly self, their angry self, their shitty self, whatever it is, to let people to go through the gamut of emotions. And then also, because that kind of releases them, doesn't it? That allows them to go away and not remain trapped inside their body. That's kind of how I see it. Now, I love your attitude. I'm going to go back briefly to when you mentioned Nystagmus, which is the involuntary eye movement, which causes the eye to rapidly move from side to side, up and down, or in a circle, and might blur your vision, right? So I love that you're finding a way to even kind of shift that thing that's happening to you now, as in like 10 or 20 or 30 years from now, there might be a solution for that as well. So you've got this long view of recovery as well, and faith in that it'll be okay in the end. Something will be okay and work itself out in the end. I love that mindset. And it's a really good way to round off this episode and remind people that that's what stroke recovery is. There's this real terrible time at the beginning, and then there's this weird middle stage where things are resettling, leveling out, the new way that things work, or the way that your body works, or the way that your mind works and your emotions work. That's all kind of working itself out in this other stage. And then there is the immediate long-term part of that, say 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track, when you're sort of starting to get better at understanding how you now operate in the world and how the world operates around you now that you're beyond it. And then there's the very distant future, which is 10 or 20 years away, which I've interviewed stroke survivors that are that far out. And then stroke becomes like something they talk about, but it's not how they live their life anymore. It's just become something that happened to them ages and ages ago, and their life is quote unquote normal, and they just go about doing things the way they do things, however that looks, or whatever the body appears to operate like, or they just find a way to continue living and experiencing an awesome life and solving problems even into the future. So I love how you've got this real busy short-term version of your recovery, which is happening now in the last 2.5 years, and since your brain surgery. And then you've got this, and we'll park that stuff for the future. That's just brilliant. I love it.
And I feel like you have to do that in order to get through it. And so yeah, it's kind of almost a coping mechanism maybe, that I think where I had my first real holiday since it all happened last September. We went to Mykonos, and it was the first. I hated like the thought of it before, because it was a hen party. There was loads of girls, concert pictures, and I'd never been in like a social situation like that really. And I thought I was still very, very self-conscious of my face and things before I went. And then something flipped on that, on that holiday, and I actually listened to a podcast episode with Jay Shetty before I went, and one of his guests said that you'll never get to be with this version of yourself again. And it so changed my mindset from then. Like I just almost overnight, like I could just deal with my situation and accept it, because I knew that it wasn't permanent. I knew I wouldn't live with it forever. And I'd look back at photos from that holiday and be like, well, the same way I do now, I look back at photos from like my younger self and things, and almost think, well, I'll never get to be with that person again, or who I am on this holiday, or who I was back then at certain times. And so you just go through these different ways in life, and I almost think it's actually quite good to hold on to that little bit of hope that you're not even waiting for that. But I'm not waiting for a cure for nystagmus. I'm just very much, every surgeon in the UK has pretty much told me that it's permanent, that it's almost a bonus now. You learn to accept it and live with it, and then it's a bonus if you suddenly, there's a trial that comes out in 10 years time, or 20 years time, and you just kind of accept that it's not overnight that these things happen, but you kind of live and you make the best of the situation that you've been dealt, and you can still have a really good and really happy life, and make peace, move forwards with it.
Yeah. I'm looking at the photos right now from your trip to Mykonos. I mean, they are next level amazing photos, the footage. And yeah, it's like that's what it's about now, isn't it? It's about actually going, you know what, under no circumstances am I going to miss out on living life and having life and experiencing life. And then remembering all the good times and dealing with and overcoming the bad times, because maybe we don't want to remember the bad times the same way we want to remember the good times. But that's okay. We're going to probably go through more bad times. Let's get some skills under our belt as to how to overcome them, deal with them, move on from them. And let's learn how to really live life and have great experiences. And I love that you went to Mykonos during a pandemic.
Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because I can really resonate when you said you spoke to that lady who thought she'd never have another relationship again. And so I had all these emotions after my brain surgery, and there's so many things that went on with a girl my age and single in the city, and thinking, oh, I'd never date again. And I went on some some dates on Hinge, and it was almost a bit of a milestone for me, but I couldn't connect because I was so oh my gosh, what are they thinking? Like, they're looking at my face, they're looking at my mouth, all these different things. And I would go and vet her, and if we were meeting at a cafe, I would go vet it first and be like, where can I sit and which side can I sit on? And then I thought, well, actually, that's really silly, because if it goes any further, they're going to see my other side. And so how long can you really hide it? And so I know this sounds really kind of sad, but I really, really made peace for that holiday, that I wouldn't be in another relationship, that I was okay with it. And so I had all these other things going. And then, like I said, I listened to that thing on the plane, and that quote, and you never get to be this version of yourself again. And because of that, I had the most amazing holiday. And then 3 days before the end, I met my boyfriend who I'm with now, and it was crazy how it happened. It was not even, I don't even know how it happened, but he just fully accepted. Like, he wanted to know everything. He read every single blog post that night that we met. He wanted to know everything. It was a bit of a holiday romance, so we had 3 days together still on the island. So we were meeting up, and he was seeing my friendship groups, and I felt like I had opened up to him and he'd opened up to me more in those 3 days than I had with anyone in the 2.5 years. And I think that really comes with, I just really made peace with the situation of how it was. I wasn't, even looking at first, I was really clinging on to, oh my God, this is wrong. Like, my face is not how it should be, like my age. And it was I was grieving for this person. And when I let that go and really just kind of thought, do you know what, you can live an amazing life still with all these complications, and it's not the end of the world. And you've proven that you're still going out, you're still having fun, you're still making memories, you're still going to amazing places. And so when I really let go and really just accepted it all, then everything seemed to fell into place. So I met Leo, and then I got I had a career change last September, and again that was because when I was working in finance, I physically couldn't even see the screen now. So there was like a physical barrier to that. And I loved my career before. And so that in itself was almost a bit of an emotional kind of grieving pull, I guess. But I love what I do now. So I write for a mental health company called Mind Up. I write full time for them. And it's nowhere near what I would have envisioned. Like if you'd asked me 2 years ago, but do I love it more so? Probably yes, because it's way more fulfilling than it would have been. So now I'm just so, so comfortable with the path that I'm going to end up on, and I just know that whatever happens, it's the right thing at the right time, and not to fear it, because if you stumble across some dips in the road along the way, or as I like to call it, this is like an absolute like road accident, then it's going to level out, and it's going to be it's just have
Yeah.
no fear of it, basically.
One of the, I love how you came to acceptance and then you fell into a relationship. Acceptance that I'll never have one, and now you're in one. Like
Yeah.
that's just a spin out. Like that's bizarre, right? But I tell you what it is from my perspective as a man, and what's sexy about a woman is not just the outside; it's also the inside, the ability to be strong, but not strong for the sake of strong where you pretend nothing's wrong. Strong where you're prepared to accept that when shit's wrong, you're going to find a way through and going to overcome it and grow, and that kind of strength. I dislike it in my wife when I dislike it because I can't help her, right? Because I don't know how to help it. When she goes into a difficult emotional stage and she doesn't have the tools to overcome them because she's never been to that particular one before. I hate seeing her like that, and it doesn't get me like excited. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough for her, or we're not good enough for each other, or something like that, because I don't know how to help her and support her and bring her out. And that's my lesson. My lesson is, okay, let her go with that and let her overcome it. If she stays there for too long, I get too shitty about it. And when she finds the path forward and the solution, and she starts, and you see the strength in her come back, it's like, wow, like I love this person again. Like I love how she's overcome it, what she's gone through. And that I wish I had the words to describe it. Like I'm going to use the word sexy. It's not the right word, right? But it's like, it's sexy when you can see somebody that's just capable of just going, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to find a way through. Like, I'm going to fight through this. I'm going to grow. I'm going to overcome. And he would have been just in awe of you, obviously for your story, but also because he would have seen in you that acceptance, that huge acceptance. And that is maybe what we need as well. Like what I need from her is my wife's acceptance of a situation and whatever, rather than fighting it and worrying about that situation, kind of helps me accept it and come to it as well. And that really unites me. That's how I get united with my wife. I find myself becoming, not that I'm never not that I'm ever disconnected from her, but like ununited when both of us can't bring ourselves to accept something and get through it. And especially since the stroke, like I used to go to counseling, and my counselor would say to me, like, what do you think of your missus? Like, and I'm like, far out. She's stuck around. Like, she's awesome. She's gone through all this shit. Her mum passed away, like all this stuff. And somehow, like, this person who I didn't think had that level of resilience in her has dug deep. She's found it. She's grown from it. She's used it to drive her going forward. And as a result of that, she went back to school. She's studying psychology. She got a degree. She did all these things. And now she's going into her master's. And it's like, wow, like that's somebody that I can follow, support, grow with, feel inspired by. That's kind of what happens when you make the decision that I'm going to be okay, I'm going to live an amazing life, etc. And what the outside looks like doesn't matter. You know, you kind of do all these things, and even if I don't find a relationship, and even if I don't end up with another guy, or I'll be fine. Life's going to still be amazing. That is probably what made Leo go, man, this is a well-rounded, not just an outside view of a person. This is a well-rounded, amazing person that I can get behind and be part of her life, and we can both grow together and have great experiences with it. And he would, and he's going, look, I hit the jackpot,
Yeah, well,
because
I remember when he asked me when I first met him, and it's classic, what's your Instagram? And I thought, oh God, here we go. Like, I've got before and after photos on there. So I really don't want to give it to this person that we met in quite a dark place. And so I thought oh, okay, yeah, we've been chatting maybe because it's really dark things, and thought, oh God, yeah, sod it. So I gave him the Instagram, and then he just read every single blog post, and he just couldn't get enough. He just texted me I want to know everything, I want to know, let's meet up the next day, we spoke about everything, and he was just genuinely interested in knowing the whole story. And then our first date, really, our first proper date, was he came to the UK to see me in London about a week later, about a week and a half later, but I just had the eye surgery. And so, oh my God, my eye was weeping. It was so bruised. It was still stuck together. And I thought, oh my God, I wasn't really in my prime Mykonos, but I was still tanned and blonde, and I had abs, and I thought, oh my God. And now our first date is I mean, our first photo together, I've got these sunglasses on because my eye was so black I couldn't subject anyone else in the world to it. But he really didn't even care, and so we talk about it now. And I did say to him the other day, what was it? Did you not notice my face and stuff? And he was like, yeah, of course I did, but I just saw your Instagram, was so amazed by the thought, and the whole journey is on there, and reading your blogs. And he was exactly what you just said. He was I was so amazed with how you just handled the whole thing, and what happened to you, you could make what you have done out of it all. And he was like, you just fascinated me, and I just wanted to know everything about you. And it just goes to what you say, I guess, where it's because I guess because I've made peace with it, and I wasn't scared of it anymore. Yeah.
it's there's something, they say behind every great man is a great woman. That's, you're 27 and you've lived the life of somebody who might be in their 90s. You've been through so much, you've had to learn, overcome the resilience. And there's something about it's magnetic, to find somebody who has that depth of life experience at 27, and to be around them. And if you're the right kind of person, because you want to grow with them and because of them, and learn from them, because I want to learn and grow from my wife. I don't want to be I don't want to know everything and tell her how to live life and whatever. I want to know what's unique about the way that she goes about life. There's something magnetically, unbelievably attractive about that. It's hard to separate it. And it's not the oh, you're inspirational and all that. It's not that. It's something else. It's just attractive. It's really attractive. So good on Leo. He's hit the jackpot. Like I said, good on him, mate. Well done.
I'll tell you, I'd say.
Yeah. So I really appreciate our conversation. Thank you so much for getting on the podcast. Well done for doing all the amazing things that you're doing. Good luck with all your procedures and your recovery to come. I wish you all the best. Tell me about what the book is called, and also where people can find you if they want to connect with you.
So the book will be called Inside My Head, and it's very, very nearly out there. So I can be found on My Instagram handle is Beauty Brain UK. My personal is Sammy BICB. And as well, my website is beautybrainuk.com. So all the details are on there, and so am I. So if anyone wants to kind of reach out or say hello, then yeah, that's where you can find me.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. It's great chatting to you.
Well, thanks again for joining us on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and got something positive from it. Please do like, share, comment, post, thumbs up. Please do interact with the show in whichever way you can. It will just make a massive difference to the way the search engines rank the show and the way that other people who are searching for this type of content will be able to find the show. If you are watching on YouTube, leave a comment, like the show, subscribe to the show, turn on the notification bell so you can be notified of new episodes. And please do leave a comment, because I love responding to comments and having an interaction with people who are listening. I don't want this to be just a one-on-one where I'm interacting with the guest and nobody else is interacting with me about the show. I'd love it if you were also able to, in some way, shape or form, interact with the show, and at the very least, just tell the search engines what you think of the show so that it'll rank it better. Thanks so much again for listening and watching, and I look forward to sharing the next episode with you.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamus. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.